Hello and welcome to another Ableton Production Tutorials live tutorial. This time we're going to be taking a look at Erosion and some of the different things that we can use it for in our tracks. Erosion is a plugin that basically reduces the quality of our audio and degrades our audio. And so it's interesting to think about, well, why would I ever want to use an effect that degrades my audio? Why would I want to do that? And the reason is because we produce electronic music and we like to dirty things up a little bit. That's kind of our personality with electronic music, and that's kind of the fad even that's taking place with dubstep. Um, so let's get right into Erosion and let's take a look at how it works and some of the things that it does. So first looking at Erosion, there's three different settings that Erosion has. They are noise, white noise, and sine. And let me describe kind of the differences of each. So noise applies a mono white noise erosion to your track. So you will end up with distortion that's being applied equally on both channels, and it's basically a white noise. It's a mono white noise, or white noise where your left and your right channel are each receiving their own white noise, so you end up with a stereo kind of effect. And then sine means it's applying a pure sine wave kind of destruction of your audio. And the sine wave is actually good for adding a particular harmonic to something that you want. So you can add kind of like harmonic distortion just at one particular frequency. That's another thing I want to mention is that erosion is an effect that is a distortion effect that doesn't add a lot of harmonic distortion. So we have to be, and what that means is that harmonic distortion is basically if we put in a 100 hertz sine wave, we would get out distortion. We get out, if we were looking at the frequencies that were coming out, we'd get out a frequency at 200, we get out a frequency at 300, we get out a frequency at 400. Because those are harmonic. But if we apply an erosion distortion, we could have, we could put in 100 hertz and we could get out 186.3 hertz distortion, and that means that basically we're ending up with a less kind of pure tone to things, but it can still be desirable in some circumstances. Okay, so the other three settings that I need to talk about are the frequency, which just adjusts the frequency that it's affecting the noise. The width, which is just, how wide is it very, peaky, is it very notchy, or is it very wide? And the amount is basically acts just like a wet, dry effect. So let's listen to this dirty bass sound that I've already built. And you hear it's already fairly dirty, but we might want to add and just, add a little bit more distortion. And see where this takes us. So let's listen. So we've got a pretty dirty bass sound, and then let's just take a look at, what an erosion effect would do. So what you can hear is it's almost, it sounds a lot more, much more white noisy. And then if we put it on wide, then you can hear it's just a little bit wider, though it's hard to tell because the bass is already so stereo. And then if we put it on a sine, you hear it's very, just that particular frequency. So something that I often try when I'm playing around with erosion and I'm like, well, what actually really sounds good here? Is a good starting point for me is often I go straight to Google, and I go to Google and I go notes to frequencies. That's this very first link. And this notes to frequencies page here basically translates all of your notes into their equivalent frequency. So if you're playing a C2 note, the equivalent frequency is 527. In this case, if we look at our baseline is hitting on the key of, mostly hitting on the key of E. And something that often works when you're adding a harmonic kind of sound is either want to hit that same note, or another one that very, very often works is if you do 1/7 up, which in this case is a B. So let's look for a B, and let's see how that might sound. So if we look here, let's try a B at 1975.5. So 1976. And let's do a wide noise, and let's bring our width, right down, so we're really making this pretty harmonic. And let's take a listen and let's see how that sounds. So I'm thinking that sounded pretty good right about there. It's not super obvious, so we can put on sine 2 and try this. Actually, I'm not sure about that harmonic. Let's try it right on E. Let's go find ourselves an E here. 2637. So let's see how that sounds. Yeah, that sounds a lot better to me. So we're adding just a little bit of distortion. Let's see without. And with it, yeah. Maybe we'll whiten that up just a little bit. So that's one use that we can use erosion for. And let's take a look at some other things that we can do with it. One thing that it can be used for is to add just a little bit of grit and a little bit of stereo width to hi-hats. So let's take a listen to just a simple hi-hat we have here. I've got, a few effects here, but so it sounds pretty good right there. And then let's listen to it without, and then with. So you can hear it softens things a little bit and adds just a little bit of width. It's something to experiment with. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. In this case, what works really well is that it's complemented with another hi-hat. And something that's really important to notice is when you're working with hi-hats on the high frequencies is that they won't really make sense until you have everything going at once. Let me get everything going here. You can see that it softens it out and it sounds a little bit more tuned. One thing I also need to mention that I've noticed with erosion is that this frequency can be really important. So when you're playing with it, I find that Ableton is not precise enough normally. So if you hold down the control key and you click, then you can tune things very, very nicely and very sharply. So I can tune this right exactly in 13.1 if that's something I want to do. Another use is erosion also can work on snares pretty well because it's just, it's like a white noise filter, and sometimes you have white noise snares or a little bit of white noise effect. So you can sound, that obviously sounds like too much, but if you bring that down, and let's listen to that with the kick as well. One thing you'll notice if you look at the VU meters is that It's now a much more stereo signal. Sometimes it's hitting in the left's a little bit louder, sometimes the right's a little bit louder. Just adding a little bit of randomization with a wide noise there. And finally, this is a trick I use that sounds really, really good here. Here I have just a really, really simple harmony. And what I did is I went to my chart, and this is hitting mostly, the chord it's hitting here is E minor. And I went to my chart and I was like, I want to add a high E. So I went and I found it, and 2.64 kilohertz is a high E note. So if we want to add a little bit of harmonic to it, we just turn on our sine and then we turn up. So we made our sound a little bit more robotic. I listen to that with a kick and a little bit of sidechain compression. It's not too interesting here, but with it. And then let's add everything else back in just to give a final listen. Hope you've enjoyed this Ableton Live tutorial, and if you have questions, please leave a comment below. Otherwise, please take a look at abletonproductiontutorials.com. I'm completing a series right now of every single Ableton effect in Ableton Live. So if you're looking for some great free tutorials to learn a lot more about Ableton Live, please check that out. Thanks a lot.